Okay, so I am going to talk about modules in batch scripts, and this won't be a very long session. It's just briefly about how you would use modules in batch jobs and if there's a difference between serial, MPI, and GPU jobs. So there isn't actually that much of a difference in using modules in batch jobs. Um, There is one thing, and that is that it differs slightly between centers, whether or not they export the environment. So if you had loaded something and then submitted your batch script, then some centers will export the environment and others will not. So I guess the safest thing to do is to load the modules you need in your batch script, just as you would otherwise, so that you can run things. It is, as I said, center dependent. And there are also situations where you don't need to load it in order to run things. But if you always load them, then at least you're on the safe side. And I would say that is the easiest thing to do because then you are covered in the cases where you are at a center that requires it. So as you probably know, or otherwise can learn in the next course that we have in the afternoon, any longer parallel or heavy jobs needs to be run as batch jobs because otherwise you would overload the login node. So at most of the centers also you could do a module purge as the first thing when you do your batch script in it, and then load the modules you need. Of course, don't do that if you are on PDC. And well, the difference being really that you do it like you would do otherwise. I mean, you have some specific things in the beginning of a script, a batch script, and we will talk about that in the afternoon if you go to that course. But this part is just telling the batch system that you need these resources. After that, you would do like you would on the command line. At most centers, do a module purge and then load the module that you would need, for instance, if you were running a Python script. And then you run things like you would do on the command line. So you just put it into the batch script instead. Um, of course, if it's a serial script, then the modules you need are the ones for serial jobs. If it's an MPI job, then of course you need more cores. You would ask for that. Again, we'll see in the afternoon if you're interested in that. Or also, you may need to load other modules that are parallelized versions of the software, and that often includes loading something with MPI or OpenMPI or something like this. Other than that, you just run it like you would on the command line. And in that case, you do srun because that's how you run something that is parallel with the batch. For GPUs, again, what is important is that you load modules that are GPU enabled, and often that requires to load CUDA also. This is a mistake. There should only be one CUDA module loaded. But the most important things about batch jobs is you load things just like you would on the command line, and then you run things. If it's serial, you load serial modules. If it's MPI, you load modules including parallel versions and MPI. And if it's GPU, you load CUDA or CUDA-enabled versions of it. Other than that, there is no difference to using it on the command line and to using it in a batch script. Okay. And well, for each of the centers, there is an example of how it would look, but I'm not going to talk about how to use batch scripts. Otherwise, I'm just going to say that we will talk about that in the afternoon if you want to, or otherwise, you can copy these scripts and try and run them. There should be one for most of the centers, as you can see here. Okay.